everyone, Karen the Spinster here. Thank you for spending time with me here today. If it's your first time, welcome. Welcome if it's not your first time. I hope you'll come back and join us again, hoping of course that you'll find something of interest here. I'm not quite sure how the day is going to go. It was an interesting night. We had lots of severe storms come through, and one would pass and 5 minutes later another one would come, and I got a lot of steps in going up and down my steps. The emergency alarm, tornado alarm would go off, and I'd get up and go to the bathroom because I'm 67 years old, and then I'd go downstairs and I'd get halfway downstairs, sirens go off, so I'd come back upstairs, crawl in bed, and then I'm thinking that wind I don't care what the sirens say, that wind does not sound good, so I'd get up and go back downstairs again for a while, and then it would calm down, and anyway, so I generally sleep pretty late in the morning because I'm more of a night person since I retired, but I slept late even by my standards today because it was such a wild night. This is reinforcing my thought that when I'm redoing my upstairs studio and my downstairs studio, that downstairs there will be a sort of a guest room. There's a bathroom down there, and could have a little sofa bed or something, because on nights like that I'd like to just go down and spend the night there instead of up and down. Anyway, so I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't know how cognitively cohesive it will be, shall we say. Anyway, when last we left Spliceville, we had done these with black and white 2.5-inch squares and pops of color, a few half square triangles here and there. And then I asked you all what you would like to try. And I had several responses, and I will go through a couple of those today. And then next week, when I start talking more about how to put this together, we will try out another one. So you may have noted, if you watched the previous video, that I had talked about doing, take these babies out of the way, applying a bias strip on top of something, and then I blithely went on and didn't do it. And someone said I'd like to see that. So I am going to apply on this green strip, and I want it to not dip down so that I'm in the 1/4-inch seam line there, but to have a pretty decided curve on it, because what's the point of doing a bias curve if you don't actually have a curve? So I will do that. I have some choices for thread. I can use, of course, invisible thread, where you are basically not going to see it unless you get up close. I could use a green thread that matches this. I could use a contrasting thread of any color, say a black or a white, different green, hot pink, whatever. So that's a decision I have to make. The rest of these are, I don't want to say nondescript, but they're pretty clear cut. This is the edge of the piece that I'm using. That has an interesting little crooked bend to it, I've just noticed. This video is probably going to be a lot like that squirrel. So I'm thinking that for this first one anyway, I don't want to have the fact that this is an applique be too obvious, although it is. So I mean it is applique, so I think I may use a green that sort of matches this. I have a green here somewhere, and I will use that to do a stitch. And I think then I have to decide what stitch to use, of course. I may use that cross stitch I really like. I don't know. I guess I'll decide that when I get to the machine. Again, I don't know that I want to distract too much from actual curved piece, so I want something that complements it but doesn't steal the show from the strip. I also want to note this looks pretty crazy, and if I were piecing a quilt that needs pieces to be precise, this would not work. I would not use these pieces in that because some of them aren't exactly 2.5-inch squares. I cut this from, most of these from scraps that had curves. And so I was close in some cases, but not exactly there, but knew that I could allow for it in seams if I were putting it with other 2.5-inch squares. You'll see this one's a little crooked. Sometimes I had strips stacked, and if there was a strip that started further over than where I trimmed off that first end, and you know what I mean. So this is not poor piecing on my part. It is consciously bad cutting, knowing that the cutting was not going to be perfect. But because we're slicing and splicing and moving things around, it doesn't matter so much here. And since it's improv, it's okay. If I were doing ordinary piecing with 2.5-inch squares, this would not be at all acceptable to me. Just to note that. All right, so now I'm going to do, I think, a pretty decided curve here. I may see if I can find my little glue stick that I use for paper piecing, English paper piecing, so that I get a good curve. Sometimes when I get to the machine, I sort of relax the curves and do funky things. So I'm going to see if I can find that glue stick. So this is a sew line glue stick, and it's got a smaller glue, whatever you call that, glue tip, I guess, that is better for doing something this size than your average glue stick. This is intended for fabric. I will probably use a fair amount on it, and it may impact my needles, so I'm prepared to change needles if this dulls it and gums it up. The thread that I thought I would use was a singularly bad choice. So I went in search of others and found these two were already up here, and they'd work. There'd just be more contrast to it than I want. So I have these two choices, I think. Pull out single threads here, which, sorry, you won't be able to get the effect of this. I think I'm going with this one. I thought I would do this brighter apple green, but this one, I think, when you take a single thread off the spool, I think looks better. So I will be doing that. Still don't know what stitch I'm going to do. You'll find out when I come back. I apologize ahead of time if there are some shadows going on here from the side. I think the camera will compensate pretty well for the lack of natural light this morning. But I have to see what I'm doing, so I have a light on off to the side here, and it may cast a few shadows, and I apologize, but I think that's going to be the best lighting choice that we have today. I'll be back when this is stitched. Oh, and I will be, good reminder to myself, I will be putting some stabilizer under here. In the end, I decided that I would try 2 different stitches. Since this is a test, experimental, I thought it would be good to look at 2 different stitches. So this is the cross stitch that I like, although you can't really tell so much that it's a cross stitch here. And then just a simple zigzag. And I think they look fine together. Would have been fine doing either one on both sides. Looks fine doing one on each side. This is all well and good, but this is me. So you know we're going to do something else to it. I actually like that very much on its own, but this is me. So we're going to slice this again. And I think I'm going to do a straight cut. I could absolutely do a diagonal, but for what I'm thinking I want to do, I think a straight cut would be better. As straight as I can get with this kind of wonky piecing that I've done. If this is going to freak you out, turn away. All right, now what I want to do is shift this. So this is sort of like our, I don't know, what did I call that when we did this? somewhere else. Now I can shift it like this, and then of course I will insert pieces here, or I could move it over and shift it there, or I could just put them back together like that. Not as crazy about that. This is a different look. It's sort of like two hills coming together. This is more like a rift or a shift in the earth. A fault line. That's what I called it, wasn't it? Fault line, yes. I think I'm going to do this and put pieces here. And of course I have choices. I could do a bright color, the same bright color, different bright colors, white, black. Someone asked to see black when putting them together. So this might be an opportunity to try that. I think in that case, I would probably do this as black for sure. Pardon the shaky camera. Still in Pittsburgh. And then either a bright color or a white down here, because there's so much black here. There's less black because of that piece. Or maybe it would be better to, all right, I'm going to go find a few scraps of things that I can use to try out those options. So I have a white strip to try out. I have on the floor now a black strip to try out. I also have this pink, white polka dot on pink, and it's me, so I also have a stripe. I don't have the big wide stripe, but I bet I could find a piece, probably right close by, maybe. Indeed. So here's my wide stripe. I've got to find some more of them. So let's give these a try. One of them that I thought I might try is, say, a white one down here and a black one up there, which is nicely in keeping with the black and white and bright theme. I quite like that. We'll put a pin in that, so to speak, literally, something, I don't know. I actually quite like that. It's just that small pop of color there. I could switch them around, of course. Put the black here. It's like the black and white balls. I don't know, were those in Gilded Age? Whatever. Nice and elegant. It's okay. I think I like it better the other way. There's more black over here. What if we do both black? Hang on, gotta get some more black. If I were smart, I'd have just left this over here. Let's see what I've got. Pardon the crackling. And this black is trying to clone with its roots there. I think that works, probably mainly because of these two pieces. I think it would be too much black for what I'm looking for. You may think that's the cat's pajamas. Okay, well, let's try it now with this bright pink up here and black down here. I could always put this green up here, but I think that would de-emphasize it. that it would just be too much green. We've got a pop of another color over here, and that may be too much of a pop. Let's try it down here. And then the longer piece up here. Don't hate it. Don't know that I love it. What if we do a stripe down here? Emily is sitting next to me today, but Emily got her paws all dirty somehow. I honestly don't know how. So she needs a major plate cleaning. So I have my little mini Aliso today, which is why you don't hear Emily commenting. That's almost too much for what I have in my head. Always when I say that's too much, wrong color, don't like that, that is not to say that it isn't a perfectly fine option that you love. I'm well aware that some of the stuff I love, you all are going, oh my word, is she out of her mind? Okay, let's try this, just because me. I think that's better than the narrow stripe, but I'm not sure that I like it. And put that down here. Now the other question that I have, did I like this or the other way around? I think I liked it the other way around, didn't I? Now I've got myself confused. As if I haven't been that way all around. Okay. I'm wondering what would happen if I did a slice in this. If I do a diagonal, is that too much? I've got straight lines, I got curves. Would a diagonal straight line be too much? You know what, we're gonna try it. So I will take this piece, give myself some extra here. I'll get there. So I'm going to put in a diagonal piece. And do I want to do a solid or like this pink polka dot? I'm kind of liking this pink polka dot. I ended up getting that to put behind my O'Reilly needlepoint. Let me grab that. I know this has nothing to do with quilting, but just for fun, since this is still staring at me. This is one of my needlepoint designs, and then I'll have some twisted cording, black and white cording going around it, but I thought that polka dot was pretty nice. So that's where that polka dot came from. I'm going to try it. I've got lots of white strips. If I don't like it, it will be okay. And how wide do I want it to be? Could be just a teeny tiny bit. Don't want it to be a lot. Teeny tiny, you'll almost lose, well, you probably will lose track of that even being a polka dot, but that's what I'm going to do. And we'll do a diagonal, I think. Yeah, I think that'll add a little extra something. All right, so I'll just slice something here. Hopefully not my finger. And then I'm going to cut this. All right, 1/4 inch seam on either side. That's a 1/2 inch. If I want 1/8 of an inch, then I need 5/8 inch cut here. And should catch some polka dots in the middle there. This is kind of a fun one for this project. For all those of you who like the bright prints, I have another idea I might run by you all today too. So I will splice this in. As it turns out, we lose all the effect of the polka dot except for those two little bits down there. That's okay. It allows us to test for this concept of a diagonal line. I don't know. Not entirely sure I like that. Certainly is an effect. I wonder how a wider line might look, or maybe another line. And if I did another line, would I want it to be parallel to that one? Would I want it to be, say, not quite a right angle, but almost a right angle? Would I want it to cross it? I think I want it parallel, which is quite odd for me, we must admit. But I think that's what I want to do, and I think I want to do this polka dot again. Although, let me see what it might be if we did, say, a gold color. I'd rather have an orange, but for now we're going to go with gold because I have something handy. So I do a piece, say, that's a gold color. Doing a very shaky video today, aren't I? That does not do much for me. I'm going to try another diagonal strip. I think the same width. Maybe we'll catch and maybe we won't. We shall see. All right, I'm just going to do another one that is parallel to that. Probably not too far from it either. Let's see, I've got 1/4 inch seam. And then I want to add some more on there. Let's put a 1/4 inch in between it. All right, and then another strip the same width. This time I'm going to see if I can get some polka dots in there. If I do a 1/4 inch from, okay, this is a 1/4 inch here, and then 3/8 of an inch, it should catch some in. So I need 5/8 of an inch. And I shall splice that in. Now we've got some polka dots showing through here. I don't think I want to splice anything into the black. We have these white patterns on the black, and I think that's enough pattern on black. It wants something over there, and I'm thinking like a circular something. I think I have just one big old circle, which I don't think will work, but maybe it will give us an effect. Let me see if I can find it. Obviously, this is too big. Although, if we had something off to the side here, see if I can do this without sticking my elbow in your face, then that adds a little something something to it. Still think it's too big, and I think I wanted a different color than that green. But it just feels like it wants something circular there. So I'm going to just rough cut an orange circle here. Out of this. Huh, there's a circle right there. I'll do a meta circle, a circle out of circles. I don't want you to even watch me trying to cut a circle. I will be back with a circle. Fairly decent circle, used a template, what can I say? Now, if we Might even want it to go off a bit or cross that seam. Nope, that's not right. Maybe it wants to sit on that seam. Or maybe it wants to go in there somewhere or down here. Ooh, kind of like that. I didn't think I would, but I kind of like that. Oh, that's very interesting. Now, what if we did something up here? That might be too much, but I'm going to give it a try. I have a purple, kind of periwinkle-ish, sorry, circle here. What if we use that there? Maybe it even goes off a little bit. I'm not hating it. I'm not hating it. I don't know if I like it as well as I do this. I think that detracts. I think I want it just like that. So I'm going to put that together and then we'll trim up this abysmal piecing down here, cutting and piecing. And then this I'll apply later. So this piece is going to go onto here, which means we're going to be trimming things a little bit, but it's all right. Some of those things needed trimming. Here's our trimmed piece. And there it is with our orange circle. Now there's one thing more that I want to try today, and I'm going to do that with a plain 4-patch starting out over here somewhere. Well, not quite plain, it has. And again, these are squares that were not necessarily starting out in the best trim. Now once again, these were squares that were cut from curves and didn't necessarily make the 2.5-inch cut. Although this may not have gotten trimmed either. Doesn't matter for what we're going to do. Now someone had asked if maybe I could put the blocks on point, which I think perhaps she meant after they were pieced, which is a cool option. And we'll look some more at that next week when we start figuring out how to put these together. But it got me to thinking that when I have done the diagonal cuts before, I've been going from one side to the opposite side, either on a diagonal or a straight cut. But it got me to thinking about what if I go from one side to an adjacent side so that I've got slices going like this. So I'm going to, and again, I run into the same thing. What am I going to lose in a seam if I do this? But let's try for, say, about here. And I could do another one this way, but I could also do one this way. And again, try to do it so I'm not knocking too much out on the, and this will make sure I'm getting at least a 1/4 inch there so that I don't mind having little bits of things peeking through. So this will be a little bit different configuration, and I want to try something in here, but I have to run down and find some fabric. I've had this fabric in my stash for quite a while. I've got a pretty good chunk of it, so it isn't a scrap, but it's me and my sister's, I believe. But it has such fun color things going on that I think that I can, even with a narrow strip, get in some fun color variations and try out some bright prints instead of bright solids in here and just see what we think. It may end up being too much. I think that was actually too much. Guess it goes this way, doesn't it? That would be all right. The one further up was just too much with all of these prints going on. Now, if we did, say, solid black and whites, or almost solids, or even, say, this stripe, and then a lot of color going on, that might work better. But I think for our purposes, maybe something a little less colorful. Can you believe I'm saying that? I think that would be all right. It was just having this ring of stuff going in there. Now, I prefer solids myself, but let's see. I know that's not everybody's favorite. So let's see how this works if we do some prints. And of course, there are all kinds of prints. You could do a smaller bright print, which reminds me, we will talk about black and white prints at the end today. So I'm going to give that a try, but I think down here I want a solid color, which I may or may not want to kind of match one of those, or I may want something completely different. What if, well, that's, if I don't have a long enough scrap, it's moot if I like it. So I will pull out my crumb bin, which has quickly become my scrap bin, serving a dual purpose these days. So I do a solid color like that, and then maybe just a pretty narrow one. This one could maybe be a little wider. I think that might work. So I will do that. I'll splice this in, cut a piece for this, and then come back and we'll decide how we're doing that, how wide we want to do that. I'd like to get this piece in first so we can, oh, maybe I want it wider here and then a thinner one there, a narrower one there. I've just become a fan of those narrow solid strips. Or a narrow one of this, a wider one of that. Nope. Definitely a narrow one for that. Now I'm just trying to decide if I want a narrower or wider here. Let's go for a little bit wider than I've been doing. So maybe 1/4 inch. Can always cut it down if I end up not liking it. Just a quick note here. Part of me really wants to drop this down so that everything doesn't line up here. If I do that, then when I trim it, I'm losing this piece. May or may not be okay. I could move it down just a bit. I'm still going to lose that once I put that in the seams. So my choice is, do I want to have everything line up there and still have that piece? It'll be very tiny by the time I get the seam in there, but sometimes I like that. Or what happens if I shift it down course, I'm going to lose some of this anyway. Then I lose that piece there by the time I put it in a seam. And then possibly kind of shift that around as well. So I have a choice if I want it to look ordered and lined up, or if I want to start offsetting things, which is going to change the size, and I'm going to lose some things in the process. Sorry, camera. Honestly, I don't know what I want to do. I think I want this at least somewhat offset, so I'm going to go ahead and do that a little wonky. All right, this little piece here, clearly I'm going to lose that in the seam, and to prevent all that bulk in the seam, I'm just going to trim that, because I know I'm going to lose it anyway. It's going to change the size of it. I'm all right because I'm kind of liking those cutoff points. If you don't like cutoff points, and I usually don't when I'm doing traditional piecing, careful piecing, but here I don't mind them being trimmed off. All right, and then I'm ready to figure out how wide I want this to be. Oh, look at that trim, was kind of interesting, wasn't it? How wide do I want that to be? That's too wide. And do I want this shifted? A little bit of curve in there would be kind of interesting. It makes this look curved, even though it isn't. Trick then will be getting that to fit in that space. That may be more thinking than I want to do today. So that's about 1/4 inch wide. I'm going to mark a spot here. If it doesn't come out to be this, life will go on. And so that's going to be at 1/4 inch, because that's where I want the seam to be. So I will cut that, then cut this to 3/4 of an inch from here, and hopefully that will catch that pretty well. And here are 2 pieces for the day. This one, I ended up, this has kind of a different feeling for me than this one. This has an elegant, a little bit quirky kind of feel, and this feels like summer and lemonade to me. Pink lemonade and lemon lemonade and orangeade, I guess. And turns out I kind of like that. I didn't think I was going to. I was afraid it was going to be too much print going on, but I think it turns out all right. I'm happy with that. I hope you all found something of interest. Let's see if I can bring in some other pieces here that we have done previously. May need to zoom out a bit. This one could be, I think I want that going that direction though. I think maybe, I don't like it vertically so much. Then it makes it look like a flower, and that wasn't really what I intended. Gonna have to zoom out quite a bit. Keep today's together here. While I'm doing this, I wanted to talk a little bit about black and white prints and where I find them. All of these prints that I've been using come from my stash. I bought them several years ago for another project. And honestly, I haven't looked for black and white, specifically looking for black and white prints other than that stripe, for a long time. But I went on in my local quilt shop where I bought these originally is closed now. So I went online, and I will put a couple of sites, 3 sites down in the description, and then I'll try to also post them here, that have some black and white prints that I think were pretty good looking. Now, there are also lots of black and white prints that are not appropriate for what I want to do, but that's fine. There were plenty that are. And in fact, I ordered, I think, a little bit of yardage of 4 prints from, I think it was Missouri Star Quilt Company. So I went to fabric.com, Missouri Star, and, oh yikes, Fat Quarter Shop. No, I think it was Fat Quarter Shop I ordered from. I have ordered from all of those before, and their service is fine. What I actually did was I did a Google search for black and white quilting fabric. And that way, when it gave me the list of results, it had already done the search on that site for me. So if I clicked on it, it would bring up the search that it did via Google. And that made it easier. One less step, I guess. That is it for today then. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you guys, and I'm just so happy and grateful that you come back and spend time with me. Next week, I'm going to think about how I start putting these together. This doesn't look half bad this way, does it? Have a couple of ideas, and we'll also explore adding some black and some white in here, intervening to see how that looks, as per request. So I will see you then. I will probably be doing that. See, I'm just squirrel. I will probably be doing that on my iPad so that I think it'll be easier for you to see. We can do black backgrounds and white backgrounds without flinging around a lot of yardage of fabric. So that will be probably on my iPad. Now, that's it for this week. Thanks again for joining me. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I hope to see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.